When my son demanded an apology to his mill, I revealed 3 words that transformed everything. Tom Henderson could hardly breathe as the tension in the small dining room wrapped around him like a suffocating blanket. He glanced at the space where Grandma Edith had just coldly dismissed Jake's dreams, and a knot tightened in his stomach. How could she not see the fire in his son's eyes? A passionate artist, how could she begrudge that? The biting words hung in the air like a storm, waiting to erupt. It was a typical family gathering, old photographs scattered around, plates filled with holiday favorites, laughter fluttering like leaves in the warm breeze outside. Yet an unseen undercurrent simmered beneath the surface. Jake had always looked up to his grandmother, but now it felt like he was staring into the abyss. Tom had worked tirelessly to instill principles of respect and hard work in Jake, and he could feel the pressure mounting as his son's hope began to crumble. This wasn't just about art, it was about his boy's heart. When Jake demanded an apology, the room fell silent. Tom's heart raced. Loyalty to his son collided with his obligation to Edith. What was he supposed to say? Conflict between his mother-in-law's traditional ideals and his son's youthful ambition loomed large, reminding him of the familial loyalty that had once defined their gatherings. Now it felt like an anchor, threatening to pull them all under. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The awkward silence deepened and unease crackled through the room. Tom could feel the uncertain glances of family members weighing down on him. Who would step in? Would they even dare to? Swallowed in a tumult of conflicting emotions, he was dizzy with indecision. He longed to support Jake, but feared the potential fallout. What would happen if he took a stand against Edith? Would it shatter the delicate balance of their family? Anguish tightened his chest. The prospect of losing either of them ate away at him. As voices began to rise, the room became electric with raw emotions, where passion collided with a stubbornness that had been festering. The crumbling bond was on full display. The love that once bound them now a mere whisper fighting to be heard. Tom tried desperately to sort through the chaos, realizing that remaining silent only widened the chasm. Another wave of doubt washed over him. Was confrontation the answer? His gaze flitted back and forth like a pendulum. His loyal heart fought against pragmatism, brain battling with instinct. The love for his family felt heavy and constricting around him, a tether pulling him apart. He could almost hear the fabric of their unity stretching dangerously thin, and deep inside he feared that the cost of loyalty may be greater than he had ever imagined. Now, standing at this precipice, Tom's thoughts crystallized into a burning question. How could they all mend the rift in a space filling with unspoken grievances? The stakes were higher than he had anticipated. The night hung in delicate balance, with his next words poised to either heal or shatter. The family's fate lay in his trembling hands, and as he stood frozen, he wondered if he had the strength to confront the deepest fissures of their shared history. Would he find the courage to tip the scales as the rancor swelled, or would the fractures prevail? The answer loomed menacingly in the silence that followed. Tom felt the weight of the world pressing down as he faced the brewing storm in the dining room. The laughter, once warm and inviting, now felt like echoes of a happier time invading a moment of sheer panic. He knew he had to intervene, but in a space where love intermingled with resentment, the first word could set off a chain reaction he might not be able to control. Jake stood resolute, fists clenched. Tom's heart ached for his son. The fear of his dreams being dismissed was vividly etched on his young face. Instantly, there was a pang of realization. Tom had once faced a similar battle in his pursuit of his own dreams. Maybe this was a pivotal moment, not just for Jake, but for him too. This was not just about protecting his child's aspirations. It was also about reclaiming his own voice, the one that had quieted over the years in favor of harmony. He took a quick mental inventory of his own life choices. When had he started to prioritize others' expectations over his dreams? As a young man, he had prioritized his passion for photography, boldly capturing images that reflected the beauty of unfiltered moments. But somewhere between raising a family and adhering to social norms, that passion had faded. Now, standing beside Jake, he felt an ember rekindling within, an urge to embrace authenticity. The need to act surged within him, and he stepped forward. "Edith," he began, his voice steady but trembling with tension, "I understand your view. Your generation valued stability, but there's something powerful in chasing one's dreams. Jake deserves the freedom to explore his art, just as I once had the chance to pursue mine." Those words felt liberating, buoyed by the bittersweet resonance of the past. He could see the surprise flicker in Jake's eyes, a spark of hope igniting against the looming shadows of disapproval. Was it possible to carve a new path for their family?
The tension shifted as Edith's face hardened, but something told Tom this battle was necessary. "Art isn't a hobby, it's a lifestyle," Jake's voice cracked, embodying the urgency of his plight. "You told me to follow my heart, to express myself. Why is it different now?" Tom felt the urge to defend his son bloom within. This was a moment where he could stand not just as a father, but as a role model who would refuse to let ideals constrain creativity. The stakes had grown unbearably high. Failure to support Jake at this crucial juncture could squash his son's aspirations. But it wasn't just about Jake anymore. It was about redefining the narrative that had governed their family for decades. "You both need to understand," Tom said, his voice escalating with passion and determination. "Dreams aren't meant to please others. They're meant to be lived by the dreamers. I'm no longer willing to choose between love and honesty." The room was thick with silence as his words hung uncomfortably in the air. He could sense the hesitation. Edith, an unwilling participant caught between pride and familial loyalty, wavered. Her eyes glistened with a cocktail of disbelief and resentment. It was a pivotal moment. Tom had opened the door not just for Jake's dream, for his own long-silenced convictions. Yet, as Tom took a breath to continue, uncertainty crept back in. Would he dismantle the walls that had held their family together for so long, or would he be met with resistance, leading them further apart? He felt the unfolding fracture between old ideals and new realities. The resolution seemed elusive yet tantalizing, and the silence became palpable again, heavy with anticipation and dread. Would he manage to navigate this turbulent terrain to forge a deeper unity, or would he watch helplessly as the old narrative crumbled under the weight of authenticity? With every step into the unknown, a piece of him was ready to embrace change, but fear lingered just beneath the surface, creating a clash that begged for resolution. The moment would demand everything from him, setting the stage for whatever came next. Tom stood immobile, the swirling emotions around him demanding clarity. Edith studied him, her once determined facade now a mask cracked with uncertainty. It was clear that the path he'd just laid before them was fraught with implications he hadn't fully grappled with. The storm brewing in his mind mirrored the tension in the room. He felt torn. His yearning to foster his son's aspirations clashed with the fear of uprooting the fragile peace that had long held their family together. But hesitating would only deepen the rift that had begun to open. "Mom," Jake's voice wavered, but maintained an undercurrent of resolution. "I only want to be heard. I can't keep pretending that art isn't who I am." His words resonated in the room like a call to arms, and Tom's heart thundered in agreement. As he absorbed the boy's plea, he understood that the act of embracing Jake's voice would also guide him back to his own. Reminded of his youth when he wove stories through the lens of his camera, Tom felt an old familiar spark ignite within him. What had silenced him was a life lived in reverence to compromise, yet here stood his son, unyielding and honest. This was not simply Jake's fight. It was a rekindling of his own truths. "Art transforms people," Tom continued, his voice steady despite the tumult churning inside him. "It gives them wings, and it's time we stop clipping them in pursuit of false security. Past generations may not have understood, but it's our duty to pave the way for the new." The words spilled forth, each one a brick laid in a foundation of newfound commitment. He could feel the change ripple around him. Even Jake seemed emboldened by Tom's proclamation. Was it really possible to shatter the conventions that had restricted their family? "Your dad is right," Jake urged, his gaze shifting between Tom and Edith. "I know it's scary to take this leap, but if I don't try, I'll always wonder, and that's worse than failing." Edith adjusted her stance, frustration battling against the control she sought to maintain. "You think it's easy for me?" Her voice trembled, emotions dancing beneath the surface. "I worry about your future. I worked hard for this family to have security." Tom felt an urge to step in, to soothe the rising tides of fear. "I understand the importance of stability," he interjected gently, "but you can create your own security by investing in passions that drive you. That's true strength." Jake nodded, the connection between father and son strengthening as they shared this pivotal moment. Tom saw not just a fierce young artist, but a reflection of his own long-ago aspirations. It was time to stand united, to embrace vulnerability as a source of power rather than a weakness. The silence that followed felt weighty, but transformative. A war of wills raging in the room. Tom sensed each family member grappling with the possibility of change. Would they finally embrace renegotiated dreams, or succumb to fear? Finally, Edith sighed, a long-held breath escaping her tightly wound composure. "I don't want to break things, Tom. I just want us to thrive." There it was, a pivotal revelation that sparked hope. But beneath the relief lurked the unresolved tension. The uncertainty of what was still unspoken hung in the air. As Tom prepared to address her fears, a new thought tangled in his mind. Perhaps this conversation would not just change their family, but also challenge him to confront his own long-suppressed ambitions. "Then let's redefine what thriving truly means," he replied, his voice steady but threading through layers of emotion. "Sometimes to thrive, you have to be willing to change everything." The room pulsed with anticipation, uncharted territories stretching before them.
What would it take to fully reclaim the narrative of their lives? As Tom wrestled with this daunting question, he knew they were standing at the doorway of profound change. Would they step through together, or would old fears close them off once again? The silence lingered, full of possibilities but also constraints, each heartbeat echoing a desperate longing for clarity. Whatever choice they made in the following moments would echo for a lifetime. Tom watched the fissures in Edith's guarded exterior widen as they navigated the turbulent waters of possibility. The weight of unfulfilled dreams and aspirations pressed heavily against him, each breath filled with unspoken hope and fear. The air vibrated with energy, but he felt both exhilarated and terrified. "Redefine what thriving means," he had said, yet he struggled to grasp what that could entail for them as a family. An image flickered in his mind, his own hesitation years ago, forgoing his photographic pursuits for a stable paycheck. He wanted to shield his family from the uncertainty he had faced, but perhaps Jake was right. If they didn't take risks together, would they be left with nothing but regret? "Tom, what does thriving look like for you?" Jake's question shattered his reverie. The room fell silent, awaiting his response. Tom opened his mouth, then closed it. What was he really willing to embrace? The throat of unfulfilled storytelling felt like a noose, tightening with every moment he delayed. "It's being true to ourselves," he finally admitted, feeling the truth ignite a fire within. "Pursuing what we love without fear of failing." Edith shifted restlessly, her frown deepening, but there was an anxious energy in her eyes, perhaps curiosity hidden beneath layers of skepticism. "What if we all started using our voices? Not just you, Jake," Tom said, the words flowing more freely as he found his footing. "What if we expressed what we truly feel?" Maria, their next-door neighbor, suddenly popped into his mind, with her tales of traveling the country with nothing but a camera and a dream. How had he let her adventurous spirit contrast so sharply with his own self-imposed limitations? "I often think about her," Tom confessed, speaking more to himself than anyone else. "She taught me that moments are fleeting. If you run after your ambitions, if you dig deep and honestly confront what you want, you'll find joy. Why did I stop?" Jake's eyes widened. "Seems a bit late to figure that out, don't you think? But you're still here." "Exactly," Tom replied, a tremolo of determination coursing through him, as if he were stepping into a fresh narrative. "I have a chance now to help you and your mother embrace your dreams, your voices. I don't want to burden you with my choices. Instead, let's build something together." Edith's expression softened, transformatively so, brought forth by the embers of vulnerability flicker alongside hope.
"But how do I embrace change without feeling responsible for your stability?" "Stability doesn't come from the absence of risk," Tom said, his confidence growing. "Let's create a new narrative, a living dialogue where we support each other. We can thrive by exploring our journeys, Who knows what will emerge? We're capable of so much more than we think. The atmosphere shifted again, thickening with unspoken possibilities. He darted a glance at Jake, who appeared emboldened by their dad's words. Edith observed them both, her walls visibly eroding amidst Tom's resolve. "What if we start with small steps?" Jake suggested. "Like an art show? It could be something for the neighborhood first, just to see—" "Why not?" Tom interjected, his own excitement igniting at the idea. "We can set it up in the backyard, a space for everyone to showcase what they love. It brings us closer together." Edith inhaled deeply. She was still processing, balancing between trepidation and support. "You think we can really do that?" Seeing an ember of acceptance flare within her, Tom felt the stirrings of something greater than just family dynamics. If we can face our fears together, yes, the moment to change is now. The dawn of a new chapter beckoned. Tom sensed the winds shifting. The confidence to confront aspects of himself he had long muted began to echo louder. Yet, as possibility danced around them, an uneasy weight still loomed. Could they truly break free from the unseen chains that held them back? Uncertainty lingered, ripe and potent, begging to be explored. What lay ahead? The stakes of their collective practices, the challenge of meeting their shared aspirations, an impending confrontation with personal limitations, each demanded attention. Time was running out on their stagnant patterns, and the question remained, would they answer the call and risk it all? The moment of truth was drawing closer, and Tom prepared himself for the battle within. The backyard lay silent, an empty stage waiting for its performers. As Tom stepped outside, the cool morning air swirled around him, mingling with the tumult of his thoughts. Organizing an art show in their small space felt like both an extension of hope and a gamble, a crucial step toward unearthing buried aspirations. Yet an unsettling doubt wormed its way into his mind. Could they really pull this off? He stared at the weather-beaten fence and the potential canvas of their shared home, the air thick with potential. Still, it felt like a sudden awakening rather than a triumphant transition. The chances of failure pale in comparison to the daunting prospect of regret. He'd already tasted that bitterness far too often. Tom grabbed a notepad and began jotting down ideas. Titles floated into his consciousness, mingled threads of hope and doom, breaking out, finding our narratives. What if this show was just a facade, an act to mask their fears? He hesitated. The thought paralyzed him momentarily. Could the dark self-doubt of yesteryear seep back into his life? He was about to toss the notepad aside when he suddenly recalled Jake's eager eyes last night, sparking with excitement. That restless spirit, untainted by adult worries, illuminated a path Tom desperately wanted to tread. Wasn't this venture as much for Jake's benefit as it was for his own? Tom flipped to a new page, scribbling the word, courage. A single word, a promise to himself, etched onto the paper. As he worked, he felt the eyes of the family on him. Edith stood at the kitchen door, arms folded, a pensive expression shadowing her face. She was examining his every move, waiting for something, an assurance perhaps. The uncertainty in her eyes mirrored his own. This convergence of fear and hope captivated him. They were poised before solid ground, yet the threat of falling loomed. "Are you really sure this is what we should be doing?" she asked, her voice barely rising above the gentle rustle of leaves. Tom turned to face her, the notebook between them like an unspoken challenge. How could he convey that he didn't just want to escape monotony, but to excavate their buried dreams? "It's a starting point," he replied, striving for a calm he didn't yet feel. "We're taking action, together. This isn't just about art. It's about us expressing who we are and what we can achieve." Her skepticism lingered, hovering like a fog, but Tom could sense a flicker of willingness in her posture. "But what if," she hesitated, "what if it doesn't work? What if we expose ourselves and it's a disaster?" Behind that question was something deeper, and Tom understood this was his moment, to connect with her fear. "What if it does?" he countered, allowing a glimmer of hope into his voice. "What if we discover something extraordinary about ourselves? What if we finally start thriving?" The tension in Edith's shoulders eased just slightly, but the battle within her was clear. As she met his gaze, he saw the weight of her expectations fighting against the raw desire to shatter the conformities that had bound them. Jake bounded into the yard, a contagious energy trailing him. "Dad, what's the plan?" The enthusiasm surged through the air, and Tom couldn't help but feel bolstered by this fresh influx of relentless hope. Drawing in a deep breath, he looked between them,
his wife, and his son. They could be more than just passive participants in life. Let's make a list, he proposed, determination filling his tone. Each of us can contribute what we love doing. Let's brainstorm ideas for the show. No limits. Gradually, Edith's reluctance diminished, curiosity igniting in her eyes. Even Jake began jotting ideas about art forms, photography, paintings, weird sculptures. This shared endeavor began to weave a thread of unity, pulling them from their individual silos of doubt and regret. Yet as laughter and conversation started to fill the air, Tom felt a lingering tension, the specter of his own inadequacies. What if his past choices weighed heavily upon their success? Could he truly empower them to face their fears while battling his own? The stakes were clearer than ever, and Tom leaned into the challenge. The moment called for something more than simple participation. It demanded heartfelt investment. As they stood side by side, generating newfound ideas, a profound realization swept through him. Art wasn't merely about talent or composition. It was an avenue for their voices to emerge from years of silence. They weren't just creating an event. They were crafting the narrative of their family. The transformative energy buzzed around them, encouraging them onward. Yet a question haunted Tom's thoughts. How much of himself was he ready to expose in this process? What revelations awaited once he laid out the heart of his creative spirit? With the sun rising overhead, the horizon seemed bright, but shadows still lurked. What would they uncover about themselves? Would the truths they faced ultimately bring them closer, or erect barriers he hadn't anticipated? The realization echoed loudly. Each brushstroke of creativity might force them to confront the past. Would they find liberation, or would the experience deepen the wounds already healing? The moment of truth awaited as they began to create, and Tom felt a familiar weight pressing on him. Could he truly transform everything that lay before them? Tom's focus sharpened as they listed ideas, the enthusiasm woven into the fabric of their creativity. Each suggestion flickered in the air with vibrant potential, illuminating a pathway through the darkness of his doubts. Jake clapped his hands, his youthful joy creating ripples of excitement that Tom desperately needed. "What if we made a mural? Something huge, something colorful," Jake exclaimed, beaming with encouragement. "That sounds fantastic," Tom said, feeling a surge of pride at his son's enthusiasm. But as Jake articulated his ideas with gusto, Tom stumbled over his own thoughts. How could he shape his own vision while giving space for Jake and Edith? Each suggestion felt loaded with meaning, begging for acceptance, but also stirring a well of insecurity. While Jake bounded around the yard, gesturing wildly with a stick, Tom's eyes flickered to Edith, who had softened considerably. The initial reluctance in her expression was waning. Still, the tug of apprehension lurked behind her eyes, a silent challenge resting between them. "What are you thinking?" he asked, stepping closer and inviting her into the conversation. "I like the mural idea, but maybe—" She hesitated again, a thoughtful furrow forming on her brow. "What if we incorporate windows, something like glimpses into our lives?" "Glimpses into our lives," he repeated slowly, savoring the concept. The metaphor simmered with the weight of their shared history, the joys, the regrets, the walls they had built around themselves. Could this be the vessel through which they shared their truths? But as he entertained the thought, a shadow of doubt danced at the edges of his mind. What if the act of revealing their lives transformed them into something unrecognizable? What if art stripped them bare, exposing hidden fears and vulnerabilities? The risk felt palpable. Could they emerge unscathed? "Let's do it," Tom said, clutching the notebook tightly, as though it could somehow anchor him. "Let's create a mural about our lives. We'll share our stories, even the messy parts. That's what makes them ours." Edith nodded hesitantly, but did not respond immediately. The silence weighed heavily, laden with an unspoken agreement. It was a pact to step beyond the confines of their routines and unearth the stories that had long been buried in the noise of daily life. As the three of them began to brainstorm the mural's themes, Tom felt an unexpected wave of vulnerability wash over him. The shadows of his past loomed larger. He reflected on moments where decisions felt out of his control, or viewed from a distorted lens of self-doubt. The mural required not just artistic input, but a raw authenticity he wasn't sure he was ready to expose so completely. "Let's add a window for each of us," Jake shot forth, eyeing Tom expectantly. "One for you, one for Mom, and one for me. I want mine to show what I want to be when I grow up." His face radiated excitement at the very idea of capturing his dreams on the wall. "Perfect," Tom agreed, feeling the warmth of pride swell within, yet an eddy of fear twisted in his gut. "What do I put in my window?" he pondered aloud, the question slipping from his lips. "Maybe the things you love," Jake suggested, "like the car you've always wanted? Or," Edith added softly, "the places you've always dreamed of visiting?" Tom's heart raced. Those dreams felt like relics, fossils trapped behind glass. Could he weave them into the fabric of something new? Each suggestion unearthed remnants of himself he hadn't considered in years, yet the thought of sharing such pieces filled him with trepidation. Did he dare risk his dreams, or worse, his failures, being on display? As they continued to brainstorm, Tom wrestled with the slow-motion revelation that this mural could serve as both a canvas and a mirror. It held the potential to reflect not only their lives, but also catalyze immense personal growth. The energy surged around them, but familiarity with one's own limitations stifled his ambition. A confrontation arose within him. Who was he becoming in this process? The man who hides, or the one who courageously identifies himself with every stroke of the brush? What truth lies hidden in those windows? What segments of the past would he be forced to confront, and would they bind or free him? As twilight faded into dusk, Tom's gaze shifted toward the horizon, where shadows coiled around budding dreams. The urgency of commitment flooded back, urging him forth. The time had come to face the very essence of who he was.
He closed the notepad firmly, resolute. "Tomorrow we start," he declared, the resolve echoing through the fading daylight. But as night enveloped them, one question loomed large. How far would Tom stretch himself, and in what ways would the haunting echoes of his past challenge the journey ahead? Tom awoke the next morning with a knot of anticipation in his stomach. Today marked a pivot, a step into uncharted territory. The sun streamed through the window, casting warm stripes across the room, but the brightness did little to pierce the fog of anxiety that clung to him. He swung his legs off the bed, heart pounding. What revelations awaited him? As he shuffled into the kitchen, he found Jake already pouring cereal with an enthusiasm that seemed endless. "Dad, can we paint the mural today?" Jake shouted, eyes gleaming. "Of course," Tom replied, though his voice carried the weight of uncertainty. The moment was a stark reminder of the commitment he'd made, and it stung with potential embarrassment. Edith joined them, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Ready for the big day?" she asked, a hint of caution in her tone. The vulnerability of what lay ahead was palpable, each word strung along a tightrope of emotions. "Yeah, it'll be epic," Jake beamed, contrasting sharply with the reservations swirling in the air. The breakfast table became a meeting ground for creative brainstorming, as ideas for the mural bounced around the room like ping-pong balls. But as the conversation progressed, Tom found himself slipping into an internal monologue rather than engaging fully, his vulnerability growing like a shadow stretching across the floor. What if this mural exposed his insecurities to his family? If he lay bare his dreams and regrets, would they see him as less than he projected? The fear coiled tightly within him, threatening to choke out creativity. "Okay, sketches," suggested Edith, bringing an imposing pad of paper to the table, determined to ground their ambitions into something tangible. Tom picked up a pencil, his hand trembling slightly. It felt foolish, this hesitation, yet he couldn't shake the gravity of what he was contemplating. Little by little, the outline of his window came to life, a small car sitting atop a hill, sun setting in the background, both a goal and a symbol of promise. But even as he sketched, agonizing doubt whispered warnings in his ear. "What are you thinking about putting in your window, Dad?" Jake's innocent inquiry sliced through Tom's mental barricade. The question hung heavy around them. A self-portrait, he thought. But how could he encapsulate the complexities of disappointment, ambition, and unfulfilled dreams in two-dimensional form? Maybe some places I want to visit," he said, biting back the deeper truths clawing for release. "Where?" Edith leaned in, sensing the reluctance in his voice.
Places I used to want to visit, like Paris or Australia, he stumbled, the half-truth emerging just as tenuously as the sketches under his fingers. What if instead of places you've dreamed of, you put what you love? Jake proposed, his excitement unfurling before Tom like a theme unfolding in a grand tapestry. Love. It resonated deep within Tom. A visceral change began to course through his veins. Love could be the bridge that connected him to the mural, his family. Suddenly, everything shifted. The missed opportunities, the regrets, they began to lose their grip on his narrative. Tom began to draw again with renewed energy, infusing the sketches with personal meanings. The car morphed into a path of adventure, winding toward a sunset of hope he could almost touch. But just as light flickered in his mind, shadows danced at the corners of his intentions. What truths would rise if he chose to share more than surface dreams? What would he need to confront if he dared to articulate his realities? A confrontation not only with his dreams, but with the failures that had once felt insurmountable. As the realization settled heavily on his shoulders, he glanced at Edith and Jake. They appeared eager, waiting for him to take the lead. "Are you okay, Dad?" Jake asked, concern etching his features. I will be, I think. I just need a moment," Tom admitted, nerves coiling anew, both terrified and emboldened by the vulnerability taunting him. The fight inside him raged. There, in the shared pursuit of creation, the need for honesty clashed against the instinct to shield his family from his past. Tom stood abruptly, the simple action echoing with intention. "Let's do this together. I mean, really together. Let's explore our dreams and fears in those windows," he said, the hint of trepidation palpable in the air. Where would this honesty lead them? What stories, hidden and raw, would be unearthed in the process? And would the truths they revealed begin a healing journey or fray the edges of their family bond? The questions loomed as a persistent shadow. But one clarity emerged. This mural would not be merely paint on a wall. It would serve as their collective journey into vulnerability, and maybe, beyond the thresholds of discomfort, lay liberation. Tom inhaled deeply, preparing to confront not just his fears, but all that lay beneath the surface. This was the moment when everything could shift, the course set, but the destination unknown. "Okay, let's begin," he finally said, his voice steadier now. But as he faced the blank canvas before them, one thought seared into his mind. Could revealing the depths of their lives bring them closer, or simply tear apart the fragile seams holding them together? As the vibrant colors from the paint tubes pooled on the table, Tom felt a profound weight shift in the atmosphere. The pressure was no longer merely a burden. It transformed into a palpable energy, inviting courage rather than paralyzing it.
He took a step forward. The tension in his body mingled with a flickering hope, and he approached the canvas, staring intently at the blank surface. Jake's enthusiasm was infectious, and as he dipped his brush into bright blue paint, the boys' laughter danced through the air like notes from a joyful song. "Look, Dad, I'm making the sky," Jake exclaimed, his creative spirit breaking the tension. Tom watched as his son expertly swirled the paint across the canvas, casting aside worry for pure expression. In that moment, Tom recognized the beauty of unfiltered creativity. As he took a deep breath, he endeavored to embrace that same spirit. Maybe it was time to release the tightly held fears and hesitations, much like Jake had done so effortlessly. With stubborn resolve, Tom reached for a bright yellow, squeezing it onto his palette before unleashing it onto the canvas. The bold strokes emerged from his wrist as he painted rays of sunshine, symbolic of clarity and optimism, two things he desperately needed to embody today. "You're really good, Dad," Jake shouted, his approval igniting all the latent confidence Tom had feared he lacked. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting instant, everything felt perfectly aligned, like harmony within discord. "Thanks, buddy," Tom replied, the warmth settling deeper into his chest. "What should we add next?" As they engaged in a playful banter about colors and ideas, Tom became aware of a growing sensation. Vibrancy mingled with timidity. His brush began to hesitate, catching on thoughts of vulnerability. The mural had become a representation of their family, an opportunity to explore and share their truths. But inherently, that meant he had to confront the unearthed fears shadowing his past. Maybe, he murmured, his voice low yet determined, together we can add something that shows our dreams. Yeah, Jake responded enthusiastically. I want to paint a rocket ship. Edith chimed in, and I can add something about our family. The realization struck Tom. This wasn't merely a mural. It was a testament to their lives intertwined, with every brushstroke revealing who they were and who they aspired to be. Gradually, Tom began to weave deeper emotions into his contributions. He opened up about the moments that shaped him, the late nights studying under flickering streetlights, the sense of being an outsider in his own dreamscape. With every stroke, the narrative unfolded, revealing complexities he'd shielded away from his family. It was cathartic. The process felt raw, yet strangely liberating. But as he worked alongside his family, an unmistakable fear began to creep back in. What if this mural revealed too much? They could end up feeling an emotional distance swayed by secrets unearthed and unspoken words shared. He couldn't hide behind colors forever. The prospect of vulnerability loomed over him, threatening to undo the connection he was building with Jake and Edith. Edith noticed his unease, tilting her head.
"What's on your mind, Tom?" Her voice was gentle, offering him a lifeline amidst the swirling thoughts. He paused, recognizing the moment as a turning point. Her eagerness to engage in this shared endeavor ignited his determination to confront his own shadows. "I want to show more than just hopes and dreams. I want to reflect on where I've struggled," he admitted, unsure yet resolute. "Then do it together," she suggested, eyes locked onto his, encouraging vulnerability rather than shying away from it. Why not commit to honesty? This mural could be the catalyst for transformation, not just in art, but in life. Could this canvas encapsulate their true essence without fracturing the bonds that held them together? Tom opened his mouth, poised to share the depths of his experiences, even the darkest corners where doubt lingered. But at that moment, a striking fear halted him, freezing the words behind a wall of apprehension. Was he ready to share those truths with his family? What if the raw layers of his past broke down the fragile structure they had built? With weight breaths, he glanced at the evolving mural, at Jake's pure joy and Edith's unwavering support. The questions gnawed at him, relentless, as the colors blended on the canvas. Could this moment be the bridge to everything that lay just beyond the surface of their painted lives? As uncertainty loomed, a singular thought pierced through. Confronting their family's reality could lead to revelation, but would it also lead to chaos? Tom tightened his grip on the paintbrush, anchored between excitement and anxiety, poised to step closer to the precipice of transformation. But what awaited them on the other side? Would he find freedom and revelation or spiral into turmoil? The moment lingered, thick with potential, as he weighed his next move. Tom's gaze wandered back to the canvas, now alive with color, chaos, and motion, but it felt like a strikingly beautiful mess, mirroring the conflict raging within him. Jake had painted a whimsical rocket ship that seemed ready to burst beyond the edges of the canvas, a representation of hope and ambition that elicited an uncontrollable smile. Yet the joy painted on their mural couldn't fully penetrate the looming storm clouds of Tom's thoughts. "Dad, let's paint more stars," Jake exclaimed, his eyes twinkling with excitement. The innocence in his voice tugged at Tom's heart, juxtaposed against the weight of the words he struggled to express. "Yeah, stars," Tom replied absently, pondering if illuminating their past struggles could intertwine with this theme of aspiration. Could the stars symbolize their hopes and the shadows reflect their fears? The idea shimmered within him. Perhaps they could paint their narratives into the night sky, a duality of light and dark. "There's no star without darkness, right?" Tom mused aloud, feeling impulsive energy mixed with apprehension. "Exactly." "That's what makes them shine," she replied, her encouragement washing over him. "Let's add both. It'll be our real story." His mind raced. Reflecting together could either bridge their distance or leave unhealed wounds. Sharing stories of weakness could solidify their bonds, allowing vulnerability in a space previously reserved for strength. Yet Tom couldn't shake the instinctive fear that this could all unravel the very fabric of their family narrative. The insecurity that labeled him an imposter was now knocking insistently at the door of his confidence. As Tom picked up a thin brush to add stars, pinpricks of white splatter against the vibrant blue, Gripping the brush felt like holding a key to unlock memories long locked away. Each flick of the wrist was a small rebellion against the silence that had built up inside him, a step toward unmasking the areas where he had faltered. Wasn't that the essence of family? To embrace imperfection? Then, in a fleeting moment, he became aware of the mental blockade that stood firm like a sentinel between what he wanted to say and the fear of saying it. His inner voice questioned whether he had indeed allowed fear to sabotage his journey toward authenticity. "What about our fears, Dad?" Jake's innocent inquiry shocked him back to reality. "Are we painting those too?" The question hung in the air, connecting the dots between past, present, and future. Tom locked eyes with his son. Could this be the moment they dove deeper together? "Yes," he finally replied, his voice steadier than he anticipated. As he painted, each stroke of starry light became a marker of their resilience. Fears can light up the night, making our dreams even brighter. Edith watched, her gaze encouraging yet expectant. "What were your fears, Tom?" she probed gently, a challenge wrapped in empathy. He considered her question, breathing through the discomfort that flared in his chest like the bright strokes he'd just painted. The small voices in his head screamed for caution, yet the call for transparency echoed louder. Could he truly commit to this moment of revelation? Inhaling deeply, he gathered the strength from knowing that this mural was as much a reflection of them as individuals as it was a canvas of their family bond. "I always feared I wouldn't meet expectations, yours, mine, or anyone's," he confessed, voice tinged with both sorrow and release. "That I was simply a shadow waiting to fade into the background while the world shone bright without me. This mural, I want it to be where I step into the light, our light." Jake and Edith exchanged knowing glances. The white-hot vulnerability he shared, instead of driving them apart, crystallized a collective understanding. They didn't just share dreams, they shared the unvarnished truth of their lives, the fears, the hopes, the spaces where they falter. "I'm scared too," Jake added, adding an array of stars as he spoke, like when I'm on stage or asking the teacher a question.
"But I want to be brave." Tom felt his heart swell with pride as he recognized a profound truth about family. A shared struggle could foster connections far deeper than any unspoken barriers. He leaned closer to Jake, feeling their momentum shifting into an unstoppable creative force. As the canvas continued to transform, Tom sensed a pivotal shift in his own psyche. The layers of his deepest fears began to peel away, revealing not only the radiant stars of their shared experience, but an unwavering bond that could withstand the tempest of inner turmoil. "I want to paint the brightest star of all next," he declared suddenly, the image of a shining beacon flickering through his mind. "What's that?" Jake and Edith spoke in unison, curiosity evident. With his heart racing, Tom realized what he had to do. It's the truth we each carry, the understanding that we've all faced challenges together, and it's okay to be afraid, but we don't let that fear define us. The three painted in concert, laughter intermingling with shared stories, and Tom felt a wave of liberation. Yet as their diverse strokes intermingled, lurking shadows of doubt still threatened to return. Could this mural truly be the courage he sought? With the looming fear of his past and uncertain futures still sitting like a ghost in the back of his mind, he steered his brush toward these final strokes, thinking that tonight they had tapped into something richer than he had ever imagined. What if sharing even deeper truths could stir the waters further? Tom pondered, pausing mid-stroke, as a new entry within the tapestry of their lives beckoned. What other confessions awaited their unveiling, buried beneath layers of paint and emotion? As the final strokes danced on the canvas, a kaleidoscope of emotions surged through Tom. Transformative moments proliferated. Each bold dash of paint added not just to the mural, but to the fabric of their family's identity. Jake's laughter blended harmoniously with Edith's gentle encouragement, exuding an energy that felt both electric and grounding. "Okay, we need the final climactic touch," Jake exclaimed, enthusiasm palpable in his voice. "What if we added a giant heart in the center? It represents our love." Tom's heart tightened at the suggestion. "A heart," he reflected. "It's perfect." And just like that, the heart breathed life into the mural. It symbolized all they had faced and conquered together, an emblem of unwavering love binding past fears with future ambitions.
But with those brushstrokes came a deeper realization for Tom. He drew comfort from the vibrant colors of the mural, yet the underlying struggle within his own heart began to rise to the surface. Despite the excitement, a familiar tension wound its way back in. What was still left unspoken? Each fear laid bare in color. The doubt, the regret, held power, but so did the voices of love and support. In a burst of newfound courage, he stepped back and surveyed the mural, now a vivid representation of their shared dreams and fears. The heart was larger than life, pulsing with a narrative that transcended their individual experiences. It beckoned to him, a guiding light amidst uncertainty. "Tom, what's wrong?" Edith noticed the shift in his demeanor, her brow furrowing. Tom took a deep breath, feeling the weight of honesty clasp his chest. He glanced at Jake, whose wide eyes displayed an innocent eagerness for authenticity. "I think we've created something incredible, but I've been holding back." "Like what?" Jake asked, curiosity written on his small face, the paintbrush frozen mid-motion. "It's time to share fully, all of it, the truths you can't paint over," he confessed, the revelation both terrifying and liberating. "I've always been afraid that I wouldn't meet your expectations, perhaps even more than I admired the dreams we painted." The air shifted, the collective tension of those words multiplied tenfold. Could this painting symbolize not just their joy, but also their fears? Edith's expression turned contemplative. "Being vulnerable is part of this journey. It's important to share those fears, Tom." As he stood at the precipice of revelation, Tom felt an unexpected weight lift. Rebuffed chains of fear clinked and fell behind him. He could articulate his aspirations without diluting his honesty. What if we all included something in this mural that represents what we're afraid to share? The question trembled from his lips, each word revealing the depths held within. Jake's eyes sparkled. "Like what scares us the most?" Tom nodded, that small shift sparking another idea. It could be our individual fears, perhaps something more profound. Everything matters, the dark as much as the light. Edith took a step back, aligning her gaze with the mural. Maybe it's time for us to confront those fears together. The idea reverberated in the room as they considered the layers of their lives yet untouched. "How about I put a small shadow of doubt in the corner?" Jake suggested, voice filled with determination, like a reminder that it's okay to be scared, but we keep shining anyway. "That's perfect," Tom affirmed. The approval ignited a sense of camaraderie as they gathered around the mural, ready to etch their deeper truths into its core. As they leaned in and began to paint shadows alongside the radiant colors, Tom felt a surge of liberation. His own lingering fears began to transform into characters on the canvas, specters born of vulnerability and strength intertwined. With each stroke, he confronted the suffocating pressure of unattainable expectations, while simultaneously weaving a narrative of acceptance and healing. Edith painted her doubt as a shroud, delicate yet resilient, while affixing it to the heart they had created, noting how the shadows only served to enhance its beauty. Tom marveled at how their fears came alive, yet coexist alongside their aspirations. Each line of color, intertwined with what once felt like impediments, had now evolved into connectors of family unity. At last, with trembling hands, Tom added a small whisper of his past decision, crystallized in intricate detail, a poignant reflection of the things left unspoken, now shared, one of striving, frustration, and the realization that self-definition comes with acceptance. The collaborative creation ignited an internal fire, a realization unfurling inside him. He recognized with delightful clarity how facing his fears transformed not only his perspective, but deepened the bond with who mattered the most, his family. As dusk approached, the colors of the mural glowed under the honeyed embrace of the setting sun. "This is it," Tom breathed, staring at their collective masterpiece, a tapestry capturing the essence of every color, fear and hope merged together, a canvas proclaiming their stories untangled. "Together," Jake said with childlike wisdom, glancing up at his father and mother. "That's what makes it real." "Indeed," Tom replied, filled with a sense of accomplishment and recognition extended far beyond the painted canvas. "Together, through our stories." With the mural now reflecting their shared hopes, fears, and dreams, Tom felt validated, confident, recognized, fulfilled. He had conquered the weight of silence threatening to pull them apart. Now they stood side by side, their individual stories taking center stage beneath the vibrant artistry of their collaboration, a bold message to the world, rather than tucked away in shadow. As twilight arrived, Tom stepped back, feeling a profound lightness now envelop him. The journey had tested him, but ultimately transformed him. They had effectively breached the previous silence strangling their ambitions, igniting a new chapter, filled only with courageous self-expression. Tom smiled broadly at Jake and Edith, his heart resonating with pride and warmth. They had achieved something beyond mere paint. Each brushstroke liberated a piece of who they truly were. Standing there in a montage of colors and textures, he realized he had developed into a man ready to embrace authenticity fully. "Should we host a reveal party?" Jake burst out, excitement spilling over. "Yes," Edith said, her eyes sparkling. But beneath their kingdom of ideas swirled a profound truth, a clarion call to the beauty and honesty overshadowed by fear. This mural was not just paint on a wall, it was a declaration of shared public vulnerability, a transformation of familial bonds, and a testament to the evolution they all had faced. And as Tom stood before the mural, he finally understood. The flame of courage had ignited within, capable of warmth, growth, and an unwavering truth. Now they were ready to share it with the world.
The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the vibrant mural casting reflections, shadowed by the intricate emotions that had shaped their journey. Would this be the mantle upon which they built a deeper family legacy, one characterized by the courage to confront their own truths? Only time will tell, but as they prepared for the party, a celebration of colors, fears, hopes, and dreams, he felt eternally grateful for those 3 words that had transformed everything: vulnerability, courage, and love. If you found this story inspiring, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next exclusive emotional narratives that will resonate with your spirit. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support compelling storytelling that lifts our hearts. Comment your reactions and theories on this transformative journey. Your voice matters in this community. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this beautiful conclusion. Let's inspire others to embrace their own journeys. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.